Morning, everybody. Wednesday morning, and as usual, we're doing our live talking about the real estate, the latest news in real estate market and mortgage market. As we're waiting for David Gazarian to join us in our live, just as usual, letting you know what's going on. Today, we will be talking about benefits of renting and owning and how to properly compare the two options, whether to rent or to buy.
Good
Good
morning,
morning, David.
Alexandra.
How are
Good.
you?
I'm good. How are you doing? Good morning.
Doing great. Doing great. Um, and
Gordon
so,
has a
David,
question. Can you see what his question is?
uh, Gordon is a great, great friend, and he's been messing with
Oh,
me through
he has.
Instagram. Yes, but it
So,
is it is always a pleasure to get compliments, even through the DMs and the live. So, Gordon, we really, really appreciate that you are watching us all the time and that you do value what we say.
we value you being
And
here, Gordon. So, are we talking about renting versus owning? Because this has been the topic of my conversations with realtors and clients this month. This is important to me.
absolutely. And like their latest data from the Redfin came out, and it keeps on, like Redfin, Zillow, they keep on saying, oh, rents are going down, like there are way more people who are staying, like staying with their parents. So it seems like renting should be better right now, and it should be a more conservative way, and the ability, like it provides the ability to save the money. But is it really so? Like, can you give us your
Let's
point
talk
of view
about
on
this.
this?
Let's talk about this. And unfortunately, I have to apologize. I could not figure out how to share my computer screen on this little telephone screen and during a live. So I'm going to have to put this visual in words. So there's a lot of I did research. I really dove deep into this subject, and I went to Google has a feature called Ask Books, Talk to Books or something, and I did ask the question: is renting better than owning? There's like 50-50. There's probably 1,000 books on the you should rent, you should never own, and there's 1,000 books you should own, you should never rent. So no one really knows. Everybody just, in my opinion, just willy-nilly says something that they feel, and Alexandra, what I do think is happening here, a lot of the billionaires, everyone that's invested in some kind of a interest, such as the stock market, will tell you certain things. For example, the biggest uh, message I hear, people say you should rent, you should never own, because renting, if in those markets that renting is cheaper, not in every market renting is cheaper, sometimes owning is cheaper, but if renting is cheaper, then you take that savings, the difference between a mortgage and a rent, and you invest in such an index such as S&P 500, and it's going to give you a 7% return, and now you have income where with owning you would not have had income. So that's the message that Grant Cardone is pushing. Peter Thiel, he's like the founder of PayPal. I'm naming you like billionaires that are pushing this theme. You should never own your home. I don't get it, because that's not accurate. And they haven't really done a deep analysis of the numbers. And I'd be willing to learn from anyone and challenge anyone in this knowledge. So let's unpack this, right? Let's unpack this. Uh, about 2 months ago, we had a client. He came in, his rent was 1,700. Um, he actually literally, we pre-approved him, and his payment is, mortgage payment is going to be 2,752. I'm giving you a specific client that we pre-qualified, and he's shopping for a home. So his mortgage payment is going to be $1,052 more expensive per month. Any one of those experts that write books and are very vocal, like the Thiels and the Grant Cardones, what they're going to say is take the $1,000 savings invested in
Mhm.
S&P, because S&P will increase at 7% on average, right? That's $840 in an annual return.
Mhm.
Let this sink in, okay? Like Elon Musk, I'm gonna show you a sink. Let this sink in. If you save $1,000 a month, which is huge, if you think of your monthly budget, $1,000 the 2-3 car payments, it's huge. But if you save 12,000, invest in an annual S&P, you're making 7% on 12,000. All right, you take you buy a house, a $350,000 house, 5% down, $17,500 down, and then some closing costs. In this market, it's such a privilege. We can have the seller pay the closing costs. All you got to do is put in your own down payment, get a house. Okay, the house costs $1,000 more. The intuitive thought is you're going to be saving with renting $1,000 for the rest of your life. That's not true. It is only true if you allow two thoughts, two premises. Number one, you will always rent for free for the rest of your life. If you're going to live in your parents' basement for the rest of your life, you should not own a home. Renting, when renting is zero, is is the cheapest
Yeah.
thing you can
If
do.
your rent is zero, it's perfect. Like don't buy
Never,
a house.
never, don't buy a home. Like my math and this calculator that I built is inaccurate. Like it will, well, it's not inaccurate. It'll show you should continue renting. The second stipulation, and nobody can, like, I don't try to convince people of anything. In Las Vegas, you and I have talked about this. You told me that properties have appreciated from 6 and 8%. Even if I allow a 4% appreciation in Las Vegas, owning a home trumps renting in 2026. That's like fourth year of owning. But I'll get to that. The second stipulation is if you think homes will never appreciate, it will stay the same, you should not own a home. But homes have appreciated on average 4% over the last 40 years. That's what CoreLogic says. So even if you allow 1% appreciation in my calculator, at some point, owning is going to be more beneficial. Homes appreciate much more than your homes have appreciated higher, more than your inflation. Inflation has been what, 2% in the last decade, give or take. Homes have appreciated 4 to 5%. So much more than the inflation. If you allow a 4% appreciation in this example, you're only saving for the first 3 years, 2023, 24, 25. In 2026, the equity you have built in your home trumps is more than your savings for rent. This is so important because this is not just 1 year. So you're saving for the first 3 years with renting, but come 2026, your equity that you've built is more versus with rented zero, and it's going to stay zero for the rest of your life. And your equity is going to keep on growing more and more and more. I understand people say, you have to live somewhere. Even if you retire, you have to live somewhere. So if you have a paid off house, it doesn't necessarily do anything for you. Owning a home, there's reverse mortgages. There's so many things. You should build a rent. And Gordon, yes, home ownership is awesome because it is the biggest and quickest asset that one can have. I have done close to 6,000 tax returns. I have met many people that made a lot of money day trading. I would say on year 3 or 4, every single one of them lost their money. It's more like a casino. The wealthiest clients I've had were those that owned real estate. Sometimes they bought the house and they stayed in it for a long time. It accumulated. They never really understood how it happened. They just reaped the benefits. Does that make sense? So the biggest,
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'll keep talking.
No, no,
So
no.
go ahead. Sorry.
Keep on going. Keep on
The
going.
biggest thing, even the enemy of owner-occupied single-family home, which is Grant Cardone, even he says, here's what he says: if you give him a $700,000 house, you know what he would do? He would sell it for $600,000. He would put a down payment on a $2.4 million home. The math doesn't check, but what he's trying to say is the biggest secret to financing mortgage is leverage. In this case that I just told you, if somebody saves $1,000 per month, and which is 12,000 a year, S&P will give him 7% on his 12,000 on the money that he has. If you take a 5% down, so 3.5%, whatever, buy a house, you're financing a $350,000 property, and you own the appreciation of the whole asset, not just your little 5% investment. That's called leverage. You're basically leveraging, putting your little down payment and owning something. And whatever happens to this big asset, you reap the benefits. There's two benefits that every real estate agent, in my opinion, should talk about. Mortgages pay off your principal, shave it off month after month after month. That turns into a huge amount. And number two is appreciation. These are complex algorithms that work, and I've put this in my calculator. And once you show this to a client, what renting versus owning truly means and what their wealth can be, there's no reason they shouldn't buy an owner-occupied home with 5% every year. Everybody can say 5% or 3.5%, whatever. You should buy a new home and become a landlord with only 5% down. And that's the by far the quickest road to riches I have learned in the last 18 years of doing taxes and mortgages.
So I would like for you to repeat it one more time, or
Sure.
I can do
Of
it,
course.
that everyone in the United States is entitled for a new owner-occupied residency every 12 months.
Correct.
You can purchase an owner-occupied residency with the minimum down payment, guys. So that is one of the things that you need to remember. Another thing that you need to remember, yes, you can, like there are multiple ways on investing. And David and I can only talk about the things that we know, which is real estate. This is our specialty. So this is the only thing that we're going to talk about and can give you an expert advice on. Because the other things, I understand that, like to us, like investing into stock markets or cryptocurrencies or anything like that, or like any kind of
We're not licensed.
art.
We're not giving investment advice. We're just sharing our opinion. Yes, absolutely.
Exactly.
This is just our
We're
opinion
just
and experience.
talking how the numbers work. And the reason why we can talk how the numbers work is that, like, to be honest with you, like when I compared the two, investing into the stocks or investing into real estate, I know that there are laws of investing when no matter which route you're going to take. But if you make a wrong decision, like obviously you can always make a wrong decision, but if you don't know anything about the stocks, then you might not fall for the logic of how it works to make the money. If whether you know how real estate investing works or you don't, like if you purchase the owner occupied home with the whatever down payment you have, and you actually use a professional, making sure that you're not overpaying for the house, make sure that you're getting a house in a great condition. That's number one. Number two, that like that you're buying the house that you can afford, and you spend at least 2 years in that house. Guess what? Whether you know or not all the rules and all the bells and whistles that come and all the regulations that come with the home ownership, it doesn't really matter, because the system is going to work on your behalf even if you don't know the rules.
Yes, whether you're aware of it, it's still going to work in your favor.
Exactly. Whether you're aware or not, but if you paid a fair price for the house, it's going to work. When you put the down payment, and like you said, you come into the ownership of the property with the minimum investment, and you actually purchase under your name the asset that is 95% more than your initial investment, then you get the appreciation of those 95%. You get it for the risk that you're taking of taking the mortgage out. You also get to, obviously, you get to write off your interest on the loan. That is true. But then another thing that most people, they don't think about it when they purchase the house, but they sure should think about it when they sell the home. When after you own it and owner occupy it for 2 years, you actually, all your gains are tax free. So if you were to compare, like investing into any other business, the same amount of money, and let's say even making the same gain. Let's say in 2 years, your investment can turn into, for example, $50,000. I think it makes a tremendous difference when you cash out any investment, even if it's a long-term investment, and your gain is $50,000, and whether it is taxable or non-taxable. I think this is what a lot of people miss in their explanations, including Mr. Cardone. When he talks about it, he forgets to talk about the back end of the, like back end of earning money. We all love earning money, but we also need to be very aware that every dollar we earn is taxable. And it is very important to know, because the dollar earned and taxed, it could be less of a great deal for you than the 80 cents earned and not taxed, depending on your tax bracket. And I'm talking about the people in California. I'm talking about a lot of people right now, a lot of our investors that are coming in. When people are saying, oh, nobody's investing right now, guys, in this market, there's plenty of people that keep on investing. And I even had a conversation this week with one of my clients, long-term clients, who told me that they are actually ready to make an investment and not break even. And that was a very, very eye-opening statement for me. It is hard, it is very controversial. It is very controversial.
I currently have 3 investment loans in my pipeline, and so and that was 0 back in November. So people are investing.
I mean, I have people investing right now, even though they're not breaking even, they're going into negative, they're going to lose the money for the next maybe year and a half until the rent goes up to either cover the higher mortgage payment or until they refinance. But the reason why they're doing it, because they're offsetting their tax losses, because they still own the asset and they believe into the asset that they own. So the fact that they're making a larger mortgage payment that is not covered fully by the rent, they're okay with that, because this is the calculated risk and they feel like they're better off. Yes, I completely agree with Gordon. The loss makes an excellent tax loss. Absolutely. So it is, if you found yourself in the circumstances when you're losing the money in whatever deal, like the number one thing is not to go emotional about it. It is the assessment how to use it to your benefit. Okay, and you can use it to your benefit, like this comment over here says. The tax, like the loss that you can use on your annual taxes. Let's say if your mortgage payment is higher than the rent that you're collecting, or depreciation also goes into your tax return. Absolutely. But you can also, besides using the short-term losses, you can also figure out that what is better for you, to take a loss on your tax return if you need to and keep the asset, or to, to actually try to offset it with something else. That's where I was going with it. And talking about renting, you can rent from yourself as well, but this This is called commercial real estate.
We'll break our topics down into more. So we'll talk about you could talk about the Augusta rule. You could talk about all that stuff if you want. Yes, 1031 exchange. We could talk about like kind exchange if you want, but that's if you want to get rid of your asset. Um, I want to be more impactful with people to tell them how to acquire the asset in the first place and how to earn equity. What you do with the equity is another. You could pull out money, buy another one. You could sell it, buy another one. That's completely up to you and your agent. In this case, I know you give wonderful advice to clients, and we've had so many clients that we talked about the 1031 exchange for those clients from California. There's so much we could advise on. I want to tell you a story. A couple of weeks ago, I was talking to a very, very busy agent with a distinct name in town, and I'm not going to name his name, but he wanted me to show this rent versus own calculator, and she is, and basically, and so we sat down, Alexandra, and I did this for this agent for his daughter. He's like, I'm really interested to know if my daughter should buy a house. And then we did this rent versus own. The only thing, this guy's so shrewd, the only thing he wanted to know is whether his daughter will break even and how much money she would make. Basically, what I'm going with this is you should buy a home with 5% down and hold on, live in it. As it doesn't necessarily have to be buy another home every 12 months. The moment you know that you can break even with your mortgage payment, that's the magical, like, how do you know you can buy another home? As soon as the rent, Zillow will tell you what the rent is. As soon as rent covers your mortgage, that's it. You rent that house out. Hopefully you have saved
You move on
5%.
to the next one.
You go move into the next one, save up your own 5%, invest 5%. So as soon as your client, I'm talking to agents, or if you're the buyer, as soon as you can rent and break even on that house, in my opinion, we should all buy another house. We should keep on upgrading ever so slightly. Don't go from $300,000 to $600,000 house. Go from $300,000 to $350,000, and in a year or two you go to $400,000, and then you go to $450,000. Buy as many houses as you can, not like in big jumps, because you'll exhaust yourself at like $2 million at some point. You'll be like, you cannot buy owner occupied anymore. So buy as many as you can. Use the owner occupied privilege, the loan, become landlords, and yeah, I really want to open a homeowners, landlords club of sorts, like where we can share experience and stuff.
Absolutely, and I think that there's a lot of valuable information, because I know my client just consulted with you on a lot of those things as the professional and as an experienced landlord. And I think you mentioned something very, very important, and I would like to reiterate it, to kind of like set it in stone. So when you have, definitely, as soon as you have like the 5% saved and you can move to the next house, it is wonderful. And it is absolutely something that you can do. Obviously, a lot of people will meet me with the with the skepticism, saying that, oh, who wants to move every year? Guys, do it while you're young.
Whoever wants to get rich.
Young. Yeah, do it when you can. I understand it, probably if you have 3 kids, 2 jobs, like in 5 cats, it is not an easy thing to do, but physically and mentally, it is stressful, but at the same time, if you want to take care of all of those kids and leave them something behind after you're gone, you should be. Congratulations, Gordon. I know that Gordon did make a move to a wonderful house that he was looking for. And I think Gordon can tell us the stories how he moves within the same community. He loves his community so much that he keeps on moving within his community.
That's a challenge for the loan officer. Good for your loan officer, Gordon.
I think that what is important is to find this equilibrium where you actually are comfortable. And it is harder to do right now with the higher interest rates, but when you have this understanding what you're doing it for and what kind of benefit it brings for you, that homeownership works as the piggy bank. Because guys, if you cannot afford it, you cannot afford it. So you shouldn't be, like you shouldn't be buying anything if you have struggle affording your living. If you struggle to afford a lot of things in your life, obviously, like home ownership is not the number one thing that you need to think about. Maybe you need to think about improving your income or trying to get newer sources of income. But we're talking about if you are in your life when you are comfortable and you talk to the loan officer and you have the affordability factor, when you realize that something, let's say the place that you rent, like you can afford to buy it, you should be going and buying it.
Even
You
if it
should be,
costs you $1,000 more. Yes.
yes, yes. I'm not saying just dive in, like dive in and be like, oh, like I listened to Alexandra and David on the live and they said just go and go ahead and, like buy a house. No, sit down and do the calculations. Understand the process from the point of view, how much you are putting in, how much is going to cost you altogether to get into the house, how much is going to cost you to keep your house for a certain amount of time, when are you going to break even, and understand what is your long-term plan is. Because if you are doing a seasonal job and you move every 6 months, it's really, really hard to really hard to settle and to actually invest somewhere, unless you're doing a pure investment opportunity, like you're not looking to own or occupy. If if you can afford to go into the same place or a better place, and from the rental to the home ownership, do so. Use your house as a little piggy bank that is going to not only collect those coins every single month you make your mortgage payment, but it's also going to increase your asset. And like David said, you're borrowing, like if you borrow like 95%, like your loan to value is 95%, so you put 5% down, it means that your asset, 95% of the money that you didn't pay in, it still increases. Have a great day. Thank you so much for
Take care,
participation.
Gordon.
So when you do that, just remember, you don't need to, like David said, you don't need to shock yourself with the payment. Don't go into double or 2.5 times the payment. You might not be comfortable with it. And David would tell you what is like even the banks. You guys look at that payment shock, correct?
That's correct.
Is that what it's called in the mortgage industry?
That's correct.
So is there a box for the payment shock?
There is no set guideline, to be honest with you, for payment shock. There's not a percentage, but obviously, if you go, I would say I haven't had a payment shock issue. Obviously, once you go to a decent loan officer, they know how to avoid that. But it's an underwriter discretion mostly. But if you're renting for $800 a month and you go into a $3,000 mortgage, which is like several times more expensive, that's your typical payment shock.
And David, I keep on talking about the affordability, but can you please put it in the regular language? What it means, like when I say affordability, it is actually debt to income ratio. Can you talk to us about the debt to income ratios and how the banks look at it, and why we're saying that there is a factor why we're saying that mortgage industry is way stronger right now, and how does the bank protect themselves and the economy in general from people, like from people like defaulting on their loans.
Okay,
Talk to
so
us about affordability, please.
okay, so affordability, as far as Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA, they have it's probably the most important ratio that we look at as loan officers calculate. It is called DTI, debt to income ratio. We need to see how much your debt is. If you're trying to buy a house to live in, you're going to have a mortgage. The mortgages will include insurance, taxes, mortgage insurance in some cases, and homeowners association in some cases. So your total cost for this house, if the house has solar panels, that goes into your payment. If so that would be your mortgage payment. Then we add your liabilities. Most liabilities are on your credit report. Car payments, student loan payments, even if they're zero, we need to calculate them. We need to add a certain percentage depending on the loan type, right? Car payments, minimum payments we look at. So all that gets added to one amount, and that is your monthly liability. We look at also the liability that you may have that's not on your credit report, which would be your child support, alimony, those things in nature.
Repayment of the to the IRS.
Repayment to the IRS, yes, and obviously that's on your taxes, so it's very visible. That's correct, unless you're in collections. That's not going to show on your credit report. So all those monthly minimum payments is your debt. That's one side of my equation. The other side of the equation, we need to look at your monthly income. So whether you're employed, self-employed, corporation, doesn't matter. We have our formulas, way of calculating income. We determine what your monthly income is. For conventional loans, your debt to income ratio, your debt has to be 45% of your monthly income. So it has to be less than half, including.
So if we say your income is $10,000 per month,
your total debt has to be less than $4,500. There are some exceptions to this rule. We're not going to go into exceptions. FHA is a bit more lenient. FHA says your home has to be 46%, but home plus everything else you have has to be 56. So it's a bit more forgiving, but FHA takes into account your wife's liability. So even if your wife does not apply for the mortgage, we still have to pull her credit and her
spouse. Let's say your spouse, not necessarily wife. It could be husband.
Husband, yes, of course. Sorry. So spouse. That person's monthly minimum payments have to be added to the applying spouse's DTI debt calculations.
Okay, David, what are you going to do? Let's say I'm a seasonal, or let's say I am a waitress, and some months, like let's say I'm a pool waitress. And I work the pool season, April to October, but November through March, I'm not making that much money. So let's say my income November through March is $10,000, but once I go, let's say April till October, I'm at $10,000, and then November through March, it goes down to 6. What is happening in this case?
So if you're retaining this, your question assumes that you didn't get laid off, you're still employed.
Yes, I'm still employed, but my monthly income fluctuates based on, I don't know, like my monthly income, let's say this. My monthly income fluctuates. How does that work?
We're going to average your monthly income. Basically, what will happen is
in 12 months.
In 24 months. So we're going to take your we're going to take your income, which will come from your HR in most cases, and it's a very detailed document that shows the tendency, whether your income's dropping, your income's increasing. There's so many factors that go into income verification and calculation, and based on that, we assign 2, sometimes 3 categories of income. We'll have base hourly, we'll have your tips, we may have overtime if we need to, bonus. God knows, some girls sell extra champagne and stuff, and that's another bonus. It doesn't go into tips. So it really depends.
Talk to us about bonuses. Talk to us about bonuses and what happens when, like when there is a quarterly bonus, when there is like, like a semi-annually bonus. Tell me.
Sure. The frequency doesn't really matter. What does matter is what you have already collected. If you've got a Christmas bonus coming up, but you're purchasing in May, I can't count it. So everything that is on your verification of employment form gets averaged over 24 months. Again, the VOE, the verification of employment form, will have a separate line for the base, separate line for the bonuses for 2022, 21. Basically, we add those and divide them by 24 months. We'll have an average bonus. You could get a $10,000 bonus per year. That's 20,000 divided by 24 months. Whatever that number is probably going to be about $500 a month in income that gets added to your monthly income. Yeah, that's the bonus.
So debt to income ratio, this is your whole debt compared to you average the income and you compare it to the total liabilities, to the amounts of the total liabilities. And what happens if like my debt to income is too high? Like, what am I supposed to do in those situations?
Well, if your DTI is high, you either get a raise, you pay down some debt, so you shrink the debt and the DTI goes down, obviously, right? Because again, income divided by the debt amount. So shrink the debt if you can, or increase the income. It's one or the other side of the equation. If not, then going back to our CIA, credit income assets, if you don't fit in the box of a conventional FHA loan, then we'll look at alternative loan programs, which means increase your down payment, and we may find a program for you that will be forgiving or will not even look at your DTI. There are programs that don't care about your DTI. That's going to cost you.
You mentioned that we can increase the down payment, but David, you made it sound that easy, like increase your income. It is not that easy to increase your income. What do you mean when you say increase your income? I cannot just go and get a raise at work.
No, you cannot. And yeah, that's that. So, in my opinion, I can think of either income goes up or your debt shrinks. Well, whether you in real life, it's a bit different. I understand.
So does bringing another person as a co-applicant is an option to increase your income?
If the co-applicant,
co-borrower, or co-signer?
They would have to go through the absolutely same process. And if they do qualify, they do. And we're still going to look at their debt. Maybe they own a home already. Maybe they have child support. God knows what they have. So it's a parallel to yours application, vetting of that person, calculating their DTI. And if they have income to contribute to your transaction, then we'll use the income. Yeah.
So technically, if you are not capable of qualifying just on your own, you can bring a co-borrower. Can anybody be a co-borrower? Or it has to be a spouse? It does not have to be a spouse. FHA conventional are a bit different on their guidelines on who can be a co-borrower. Generally, I would say everybody could co-sign on a mortgage. Does the co-borrower have to be an occupant in the house?
Not at all.
Not
at all. Co-borrowers rarely are unless they're a spouse. So there's the terminology called non-occupying co-borrower, which could be a parent. Parent could be a non-occupying co-borrower, and co-sign could be a friend for all I care. So non-occupying co-borrower.
And I just wanted to remind that we're talking about conventional and FHA. Guys, we're not talking about the VA. VA goes under their own rules. You cannot be a co-borrower. You cannot be on the... Yeah.
Every loan is different. Yeah.
So we're just talking about the terms, and we're giving you the general information, what you need to know. If you need to increase your income, this is one of the ways you can increase your income. Correct?
That's probably the easiest, quickest way to increase your income, yes. Short of getting a raise.
The co-borrower can even live in a different state, correct? Like, let's say if you have a parent who is willing to co-sign.
Non-occupying co-borrowers can live in a different state. That's completely fine. Parents do not have to live with you in the same city, same state.
At the same time, they don't have to be your blood relative. Like, they don't have to. They can be like
I
I don't
want to
know.
say
It could
I
be
have
your
done loans where they haven't been blood relative. Yeah, I can't recall which type of loan we did, but yeah, not every co-borrower is a blood relative. That's not a requirement. Hmm.
excellent. So we figured out how to increase the income quickly. Is the co-borrower and co-signer? Talk to
It's
me
the
about
same
that.
thing.
Co.
There's no categories of co. Co means if your application does not qualify, if the ratios don't work, you add another application. You could add several co-borrowers. Co-borrower, co-signer. What co-signer is not a terminology we use in mortgages. It's mostly with cars. It's technically the same thing. You bring in another applicant, which is a parallel application. It's not less paperwork. It's the same amount of paperwork they go through. We do calculate their DTI, their liabilities and income, and if they have extra income to contribute to this whole transaction, awesome. If they don't, you don't use them. I've had a situation where this family, it was the husband, the wife, and both of their kids that bought the house. Yes, they lived in the same house, but we've literally used everyone's income. We had like 3 applications going at the same time.
Excellent. Now talk to me from the standpoint of a co-borrower. What are the risks that I am taking as a co-borrower? So am I responsible for the payment?
Yes,
Is
you
this
are.
payment going on to my credit?
Yes, it is.
Um, so, I might want to help my family out, but what if I'm going to buy another house in a year from now? I I don't want to help and then be homeless. So, can you talk to me about how to what are the things that you need to know if you are a co-borrower or if you got asked to be one? Like these things that you should know about the process and to be aware so that it doesn't turn out into a huge disappointment later on down the
So
road.
So if you're asked to be a co-borrower, understand the workings of the debt to income ratio. The more debt you have, the less mortgage you qualify for. So if you're contributing your income for your friend, relative, whoever to buy this house, your income is being allocated to get that debt. And maybe you have so much income that it doesn't matter. You can get the second mortgage for yourself. It's completely fine. But there is the chance of, so tell the loan officer, listen, I'm willing to help my friend, but I have plans of buying my own house in a year or this year. And have an honest conversation with your friend. When will you refinance and get this house off my name? Because that's usually, if you don't qualify now, you're not going to qualify generally within this year. It's either because of your credit, income, or a down payment. So that'll probably be next year. So these are conversations that people need to have, honest conversations. The
Okay.
co-borrower
Okay.
enters and exits once the actual homeowner is able to refinance, pay this existing mortgage off, and uh, free up the co-borrower of this debt, of this burden.
So if I'm a co-borrower and the person who I signed up for does not make a payment, does that go into affect my credit?
Absolutely, because you're just as liable for that credit. It will show a mortgage late. Make sure that does not happen. So we need to do this responsibly. The bank only extends the credit because you're willing to be responsible for it. You're taking responsibility for it as well. So the bank is way happier than now there's two people responsible for this mortgage, right? So it's less risk. It dilutes the risk. So yes, you are responsible, and I have seen this happen before, where the co-borrower's credit was dinged, was damaged.
And we're not talking about mortgages. I'm pretty sure that you had that. In fact, we had it happen to one of our clients where the client's credit was damaged through being a co-signer on the lease that on the car lease.
It's happened to me several times with mortgages as well, where they had a co-signed for family, for friends, for ex-spouses, for like here. This is endless. So it's as
So,
endless as the human nature. So yeah.
So this is something very important that I would like to reiterate on, is that when you are asked to be a co-borrower, please be very careful and be very, very cognizant of all of the liabilities that you're taking on. So
That's true.
yes, like, are you entitled to the profit from the house when the house is sold if you're a
I
co-borrower?
don't think so. Oh, that's a weird idea.
It
No,
doesn't,
no,
core borrowing does not automatically entitle
no,
you
no,
for the profit.
no.
It only entitles you to the liability. So if this is something that you guys are making as an investment, as a long-term investment, once again, being a co-borrower only applies the liability on you. It doesn't give you the benefit of the gain when you sell the house
The
later on.
co-borrower needs to have a very open and honest conversation with the person. And I have seen co-borrowers want a part of the house years later, 10 years later down the road, when houses now has several $100,000 of equity built. I've had family arguments. So this does happen. You need to have, not to lose your friendship and relationships, you need to have these open conversations of what it entails, that you don't own anything. You're not going to own a piece of profit. You're only helping your friend, but at the same time, you're going to be responsible. If they don't make the payment, your
You
credit will be
only own a
damaged.
piece of debt.
You just get the debt part, yes.
Um, okay, so when it comes to then another thing, like when it comes to having this, like being a co-borrower, can you refinance the house without like to actually eliminate the co-borrower without the co-borrower's consent?
No, you're gonna need that person's signature at the end, and when you're signing your complete title documents, the grant bargain sale deed will need to be executed by the co-borrower as well before you can take them off.
Yeah, so if you're, guys, this is something also to remember. If you're not in a good terms with your co-borrower, you should get on a good terms, especially if you're trying to refinance or sell the property.
I've had several refinances get canceled on escrow day because the ex-spouse, ex-friend, ex-whatever refused to sign and come off title. Just because, just in spite, out of spite, and the transaction fell apart. I can think of three off the top of my head that has happened. So now we ask, you've got another person, or talk to them. Are they going to sign? Are they going to come off? Like, have this conversation. No, they will not. Well, then we shouldn't start this transaction. It's not going to go anywhere.
Absolutely. And one more thing that I know, like you and I, we both come from the family of immigrants. So, and very often we have, we have the families joining us in the state or in the country later on. So it is very, very common for the immigrant families to try to help one another, and it is a common practice for the families who's been in the country for a longer time, established better credit, has better jobs, like those who have better jobs, to help out their newly
Yeah.
joined families. So, as a co-borrower, what are the practices that you would advise on to be careful about and that people should follow in order not to hurt themselves?
Well, you have to have an honest conversation. Like I said, you have to have the expectations. Um, as a co-borrower, you're being expected to help, but you're not uh, entitled to any of so do not expect any part of the future appreciation. That's not a business you're going into. This person that you're helping is buying a house to live in. That's like their home. So don't treat it as a business. Treat it as an honest help. But at the same time, ask yourself whether you're planning on buying anything of your own in the future, because most definitely it does reduce your ability to purchase because of the added debt that you're going to take on. Ask the person how long they're planning on keeping that mortgage. That mortgage will get have to get paid off at some point. I can imagine there's so many co-borrowers now and that bought at 2.5% interest rate. Now they don't want to sell. And I can imagine how many co-borrowers are stuck now because the person doesn't want to sell and lose that low interest mortgage. So it's a thing.
Am I really stuck? Am I really stuck, or the fact that
You're
I'm
stuck in
not
your
making a
desires, yes.
single payment, well, is the fact that I have not made a single payment. Let's say I am a co-borrower for 3 years, never made a payment, and now I want to get a mortgage of my own.
Mhm.
Is there anything I can do
I
to
see where you're
prove to the
going with
bank?
this.
And yes.
You're smart. All right. Okay, Alexandra. So there is the uh, paragraph guideline of what's called a non-contingent liability. Um, thank you for pushing me in this direction. Okay, let's talk about non-contingent liability. This means that you can have debt on your credit, but if we can prove that some other entity is responsible for it and has made timely 12 payments, even if it's on your credit, we can ignore. So the other entity could be the person that you co-signed for. You don't live in the house. 12 payments is a must. 11 doesn't work. If we can show bank statements, 12 payments came out of someone else's account, we can ignore this. Uh, this debt on your credit could be a house, could be a car, could be any debt on your credit. It could be your business for self-employed people. People, listen up. It could be your business. My car is being paid from my business account. After 12 months, well, in the first 12 months, there's nothing you could do. But after 12 months of being paid by your business, and having it included in your taxes, that is not your liability anymore. You can, even if it's reporting on your credit, you can ignore. This is good financial hygiene. When I do face-to-face interviews with self-employed people, I tell them every single time, make a habit of paying as much debt as possible from your business account so we can ignore it 12 payments later.
I'm gonna ask you to unwrap this question a little bit more,
Okay,
because
ask questions.
when you're like, let's say my business is not established enough so that I would finance the car under my business. They're still asking for my social security. They're still putting that debt on my, like, give me more information, give me more details. So the car is still under my name, but I do
It's
use it
okay.
for business.
It's okay. The car doesn't have to be under the business name. Frankly, every time I finance a car, the guy would ask me, do you want to put it under your business? It's going to be $100 more expensive. I'm like, no, it could stay under my name. That's okay. So you have the ability to get a business loan at the dealer. It's slightly higher interest rate, different guidelines, business, commercial loan. But your question is, even if it's on your personal name, can you ignore it? Yes, you can. If you report it on your, make sure your CPA is clean and reports auto, even put like BMW, whatever, Mercedes, like put that specific identifier. And whether it's lease, payments, doesn't matter. It's reflected on your taxes. It makes it official. Having an expense on your taxes makes it official. And 12 payment history, whether it's your business or your brother that you co-signed for, we can ignore it.
And I think that it is important for those who own and start the small businesses to reiterate, like, we're not financial advisors, but still, I would like to reiterate, if you guys own a small business, make sure that you have a business account that is separate from your personal account. And this way, when when you do your taxes and when you show the business expenses, they need to come out of that account. If you accept, because the reason I'm saying it is that I see Lika, thank you so much for my beautiful hair every time. When you are when you're a person like a beautician, and I know a lot of our girls, they go through it, like, it might seem to you guys that it is all very cheap. Like it's like every jar is just $100, but there's very expensive equipment, and a lot of times the girls would buy or lease this equipment that could be, like it could be like $50,000-$80,000 liability, because a certain machine, like the more, like especially institutions, like certain, like some of those machines, they're like they cost just as much as the car does.
Are you
And
serious?
and absolutely, absolutely. That's why, like that's why I really, really want to make sure that all the beauticians and institutions, or whoever you are, if you're a doctor, like you have to have it all. Like if you're just starting out, you have to have it all on your business account. Yes, you might be personally liable for the lease of a certain equipment, or it could be an equipment for the construction workers. They also have a lot of expensive equipment. So if your equipment is there, make sure that you make the payments from your business account. And of course, remember about the 12-month rule. If you bought that equipment yesterday, or if you are going through the loan application, through the loan process, and you're trying to buy something like that, make sure that you can go through the process first before you make any purchases of that kind or sign up for any leases. Just because it's not a vehicle, just because it's not another car, I mean, like for some of the small business owners, I'm talking about their rent leases. If it is on your credit and you're liable, be very careful with it. And if you're paying, like if you're paying it from your pocket instead of the business account.
That's a good point. I agree. I concur.
And as always, we would love to remind you guys that we're here to answer all of your questions. If there is a certain topic that you need to know more about, David and I are always happy to actually elaborate on it, as usual, for almost the whole hour. And it will stay in the recorded videos, so we're always going to be there, for you. Later on, we're posting it on YouTube as well. And if it is some kind of a personal request, like if you're asking and sharing your personal private information, please, we do ask you to either DM us or contact us directly. We do leave our information always under the description to the video, so you can always call us, get the Zoom, get the personal consultation. David is very generous with his explanations, and thank you so much. So is your team, and we're here to help. Don't be scared, be informed. And that helps you, that will help you understand that it doesn't matter, the economy never gets better. There's things that are going to get even more complicated, and there will be more add-ons, but some decisions better be made right now than never.
Well, I think every self-employed person, to an extent, doesn't matter that they are a small business owner. Let's say you're an esthetician, for example, the example you brought. You're still self-employed. You don't get a W-2. You work for yourself. And there are certain things that you need to educate yourself. You owe it to yourself. The more educated you are, and I mean mostly about taxes, right? There's only so many things you need to know. There's basics, but every self-employed person needs to know the basics. So find yourself a good tax preparer. Go talk to them, for an hour. During the off season, not the tax season, but off season. Take some notes. I have so many people, so many smart clients come sit down. David, what should I do? I do flooring, for example. They give me 1099. They make a to-do list. Go do it. Call me in a month. I did this. I'm like, good job, man. That's all you got to do. You're set for life. There's nothing else you need to do. It's so simple, but there's some basic knowledge that every self-employed person needs to obtain, and because getting taxes, filing them as cheap as possible, I'm not talking about the fee, but the structure and your tax liability to the IRS, the more income you can show, your decisions change. Now you can buy homes, you can apply for business loans. Your thinking process changes when you can verify income versus flying under the radar that so many people do. So educate yourself, get some basic knowledge is so important in people's future net worth. And yeah, very important.
David, I have to disagree with you.
You do.
Probably the first time
It's
I'm
okay.
gonna do it on camera. You're saying, oh, go get an advice. So I know a perfect professional who is on camera for an hour every Wednesday, giving a lot of great information.
Send in
So
your
I would
questions.
say,
I'll respond.
I would say that David and I devote the next session, the next Wednesday. We actually specifically talk about how self-employed people should prepare to getting
My favorite topic.
their loan applications and what every single self-employed person needs to know, so that it doesn't matter when you decide to make this move. Like, to me, I would like to see every single person on the, like, any day of the year, if they walked into an open house and decided to buy it, they should buy it. They should be ready. Their taxes should be ready. Their income should be, like, their paperwork should be in place and intact, and everything should be like, you should be walking around ready, because you never know when that opportunity is going to present
You are so
itself.
correct. So correct. What happens with people, Alexandra, is people, most of the time, right? They see a house and like, I need a pre-approval. I'm like, you're not ready. Well, you still need to file 2 years of taxes. And once you're ready, the house is gone. So maintain your qualification. Be qualified at all times, right? And I do maintain, I would say, a couple of hundred clients. There's only there's a limit to how many clients I can talk to and consult, but I do maintain, I would say, about 200 clients. They're always qualified. There's never a question with our clients whether they can buy a house. They call me in the morning, David, I saw a house, I like it. Can you send a pre-approval letter? They will have a pre-approval letter in under an hour, because it's never a question whether they can buy a house. That is such a blissful place to be in, and that's what I recommend everyone to be in.
And this is probably, we're going to touch upon this topic once again next session, but I really would like for you to explain how you can get qualified today, or you can get qualified in January, or get everything ready in January, and it doesn't make it an obligation for you to buy a house, but you can pretty much get all of your ducks in a row in January. And if in September you decide to make that move and you see that house of your dream, you can be, you can be tuned in right away. And I would like for you to mention about, about the credit pools. That is probably the most, the biggest factor that would stop people, because they don't want their credit pools. So I know we're coming up on more than an hour, so I would like for you to give us your full attention and to give us all of that information for the next time.
Happy to.
For everyone
Great
who
topic.
is listening to us right now, and for all of you who are going to watch this video in recording. So next Wednesday, we're going to announce it as soon as we're done with this video. We're going to talk about what every self-employed person needs to know in regards to their business, their expenses, their taxes, so that they could be ready to file a mortgage application anytime they wish.